How are you doing? I was just gonna drink some water and I see I ran out. This is my big glass that I drink from. But what I want to talk to you about today is something that I call the third way. In fact, this is not my idea. This is something that I learned from my beloved Rob Bell, who has a podcast called the Robcast, who I've been listening to for a long time. So I really am intrigued about this idea of the third way. And this came up today in this coaching session I just had with a client today. And he's actually the third client who I'm talking to about weight loss and really getting healthier and getting in better shape, and probably because of Corona and everything else that's going on, all the insanity. We're so focused on getting things done that we sometimes forget about our body and we forget to remember about this whole thing. And one thing that really got started. So this is a client who really is very positive, and one of the things that we, those of us who have a positive bias, one of the downside, or I should say, that what's in the blind spot of being positive is that we just kind of tend to say, well, it's okay, it's not so bad. And what happens for someone like that is once they realize how far they've kind of gone as far as, this getting in better shape, then it just feels kind of so overwhelming that it just seems like it's never going to be possible. And so when I asked him to think about kind of how he's thinking right now about kind of his health and his body, what he said is that what we've identified is that there's a voice that's kind of like what he calls the compassionate voice that says, it's okay, it's so hard when you're tired, you're like working all day, we have this coronavirus that's keeping us at home, and no wonder that this is the time when you're not working out. So there's that voice that basically says, you're fine, it's hard to tie your shoes, it's okay. But then when we really look at how true is that, he found that that's only telling part of the truth. The truth is that, it's also not so good to be so far off from where he wants to be. But then there's also the other voice that he identified in coaching, which is that, kind of the rational side. We realize that there's this compassion that speaks to him, and there's another place that he speaks from that's really kind of mean, right? Like we all have this, which is like, we have no excuses. What are you doing? How could you let this happen, right? And so what he found, because all I do is really kind of ask questions that are meant to deepen your awareness, because ultimately only you know best what you need. And so what he found in our session is that really they're both right and they're both wrong, and that there is actually a third voice that he characterized as more realistic. And so what's realistic is that you can take this third way. What he found out is that he's been looking the whole time at this, at his body and the body and the idea of losing weight and getting healthier as something that's like black or white. You either go back to really exercising an hour a day every single day, or just give up. And so he's identified that when he looks at things as a black or white kind of situation, he tends to just kind of give up, because it's impossible if simply from a biological standpoint that our neural pathways are going to take some time to build. So you can't build a 10-story house or building without building the foundation, and you gotta start where you are. And so what he's identified in the session is that really his goal is to get the best out of himself in the same way that he's doing in all the other aspects of his life. His goal here is not lose X amount of weight, but it's really get the best out of himself. And so this is a real powerful change in his perspective. It's a real powerful change at the energy level that he brings to this workout. So it's no longer something that, he avoids or that he is going to beat himself up. It's really just kind of looking at what possibly is realistic here. And so what's realistic as with any project that we're taking on, is to start where we are, is to accept the situation where we are at this point, and really try to find something that's realistic, like a realistic next step, right? So it's really changing our intention from looking at like, black or white kind of perspective to really kind of find something that is realistic, something that will work. And then God knows, once we got our first step, we're going to make the next step. And before we know it, we've got our neural pathways created for us. And we create healthy habits, you guys. So, last thing I want to say in closing here is, as you look at doing something like this, whatever that challenge might be for yourself, I have one thing that I want to tell you. Be nice. Be nice to yourself when you do this. Do not let that voice that's going to just beat you up take over. Neither let the other voice take over that just says you're fine the way you are, which you are fine the way you are. But if the goal is to get the best out of who you are and feel your healthiest, then take that third way. Think about the realistic approach that you could take to start where you are, and please be nice to yourself in the process.